So to make a mohawk, let's select the Groom node and go into the tool settings and add. And let's just make sure that populate is off, conform new strands is off. Let's turn on the wireframe and let's add a few strands down the center of the surface. Okay. Now we can keep it old school punk, but let's shape these curves so we can get a little shape out of them. Okay. Let's drop the strength down a little bit. Scale the ones near the center. Set the strength back to 1 and shape it. Now to actually see how the strands are affecting the hair, let's open up the graph editor, select the Yeti node, and activate the comb node. Now what we're seeing here is the strands affecting the hair. However, they're not affecting the length of the hair. So in order to change the length, open up the grow node, options, and we can manually add a little length to the hair. So say we want it to match the length of the curves. We can change the number to 10. Or what we can do is take the groom node or import node and connect it to the grow node. Now what this is doing is it's matching the length of the hair with the length of the guides. Now we don't actually want hair all over his face, at least not for this example. So one way to limit the area of growth is to create a density map that we can then plug into the network. Or another way to keep it a little simple is we can create a face selection set of the faces that we would like hair grown on. So let's go ahead and select the center strip of faces, and let's add these faces to a selection set. So let's go to create sets. Let's name this Mohawk selection set. Now if we go back to our Yeti network, select our Yeti node. In the scatter node, there's a section named face set. What we can do is add the selection set that we just created. So let's copy the name of the selection set, go into the scatter node, and copy the name into the face set entry. And now what this does is it'll only grow hair on the faces included in the selection set. Now let's go ahead and shape this mohawk a little bit more. So let's select our Yeti Groom node and hit the Groom button. So let's go ahead and add a few more curves. Now let's turn on the conform new strand so that they match in shape. And let's add a few down the line. And shape these a little bit. Now if you want to resize the tool radius, you can press the B button and left mouse drag, or you can go to the tool settings and adjust the radius from there. So let's set that back to 1. Shape these a little bit more. trying to match the shape of the center strands and taper them a little bit towards the center. Now, depending on the computer that you're running Maya on, it may not run as smooth if we keep the hair displayed. So in order to turn the hair off, we can do it in a few different ways. We can simply hide the Yeti node from the outliner. We can go to the Yeti network and make a different node the root, like the Groom import node. And there's always the option to add the Yeti node to a display layer. So if we create a layer, let's name it Yeti DL. So now that we've groomed one half of the mohawk, we can repeat the process for the other half, or what we can do is use the Yeti mirror tool. So if we select the guides that we want to mirror, and hit the mirror selected, it'll duplicate and invert the fibers on the other side of the x-axis. Now, one thing that you want to be mindful of is to avoid accidentally mirroring the same curves twice. If you hit the mirror tool again, it may seem like nothing happened, but if you select a strand and move it, you might notice that there are two strands right on top of each other. And the problem with that is that it'll cause issues down the line and it'll be difficult to figure out the issue. So let's go ahead and remove these and mirror them again. So now let's go back to the Yeti graph and make the comb node the root. And we can see that the hair is tapering more towards the center. Now each strand has a radius of influence over the hair that's grown on the surface. And that radius only goes out so far. So what we need to do is add additional strands. Since we have the conform new strands on, they should adopt a similar shape from the strands around them. And you can see that the average is a bit straight. That is why the fibers around this area aren't tapering as much towards the center. So we can continue to sculpt the strands, but if we want to mirror the tool's behavior over to the other side of the x-axis, the tool does have a mirror option that we can use. Just set the mirror axis to X. Now when we're using the sculpt tool, given that it is viewport dependent, you might not get an exact mirroring of the tool's behavior. This is not the case with the comb tool or the scale tool, which are surface dependent. So let's go ahead and select the comb tool and push these strands towards the center. These two fibers are pretty offset, so let me see if I can straighten them out. So that's not going to work. So let me just reset by removing it, adding it again, add the curvature back in. Now let's reverse the values. Tip strength to 1. Now we can shape the top end of the strand. So in order to get closer to the shape that we want from the fibers, we have to add a few more strands, which in a way gives us more resolution to work with. You can shape the overall volume of the hair a lot better. So now we can take a step back and increase the display density so that we can see how the overall shape of the hair is looking.